Hello, I'm E.D. Lewis and welcome back to my channel. And today I have a triple review because we're going to review a whole trilogy. It's not a true trilogy because it doesn't follow some of the earmarks of a trilogy, but it's 3 books in a series. So it is a trilogy, just, you know, without the trilogy rules. So, okay, last year I read and reviewed Halloween by, I always forget which it is, if it's Curtis Richards or Richard Curtis. I've seen editions with using both versions of his name. Well, not that long ago, I went ahead and I explored these other 3 books that are in the Halloween franchise. These ones are book sequels only. They are not sequels to the rest of the franchise, and they are YA series. And they are The Scream Factory, published in 1997. The Old Myers Place, also published in 1997, a few months later. And The Madhouse, published in 1998. Now, this whole series, by the way, ignores the events of everything after Halloween. I don't think Halloween 2 is canon in any way with this series, because it doesn't give any indications about the events that happened at the hospital in Halloween 2. So I think it's only canon with the original book, or the original film. Well, also, the novelization too. So in the Scream Factory, which came out on October 1st of 1997, it follows a girl named Laurie, not Laurie Strode, but a different girl named Laurie, and her name is spelled a little differently. It's Lori. And she and her friend Sally are supposed to do a history report, and so they plan to do it on the town of Haddonfield, the town they live in. So the history of Haddonfield's founding families. So they go to town hall and they end up stumbling upon some information they weren't supposed to see. Stuff about the murders from 1978 when Michael Myers returned after a 15-year absence from murdering his sister. After that, they are caught by the mayor, who then decides to use them to plan a Halloween bash for the entire town. And let's just say things go awry when Michael Myers shows up after all these years. So, it was interesting. It did something a little different with the lore. It makes some weird little changes, like Michael Myers. It's listed that Michael Myers was shot several times and his body was never recovered after falling out of that window. Also, it mentions that Michael Myers wore gloves, and I can't remember if it's this one or the next one. It mentions that he had killed like 17 teenagers. He didn't kill 17 teenagers on Halloween night of 1978. Not even if Halloween 2 is canon, which I don't believe it is. I gave this one 4 stars. It was an interesting opening to the series. It was very 90s, that's for sure. It was something at the time that I was going through this one that I cannot remember what. Oh, it sounded a lot like how kids talk in movies of the time, kind of like Scream and Halloween H20. Horror films from the 1990s, especially the late 90s. They sounded a lot like teenagers in movies. And it had some 90s references, like Pamela Anderson is even referenced in kind of an almost cringy way that she's referenced, that one of the girls does. I believe it's Laurie. But yeah, there's an element of romance in all these ones, by the way. This one, Laurie is infatuated by this young artist who also has a band, and there's a really cool band scene at the Halloween party at Town Hall. And they've also made the basement, by the way, into kind of a spook house maze. It's really cool. And that's where the big showdown goes down. And there's a bit of a body count by the end of this one. It definitely gets intense. But anyway, so the guy she's infatuated with, it kind of becomes her boyfriend. I believe his name is Jake. It's been a little bit since I've read these. Well, we'll get to that. It's been a bit since I went through these, and he has this really cool shtick where he dresses up as, like a devil, and when he's singing the songs and stuff, and it's just a really cool scene. It was pretty awesome. Next up, there is The Old Myers Place, which was also published in 1997, a couple months later in December. So Mary, still fairly new to the area, she and her family have moved into the old Myers house, the house where, young Michael Myers had murdered his sister Judith. Well, she's trying to distance herself from her old boyfriend, and she's trying to settle more into, the groove and stuff of being in a new place and being the new girl, and she strikes up this new relationship with this jock. Well, her old boyfriend shows up, and he starts to give warnings to her about this guy and his shady past, about something that happened to him with some other girls. As the book goes along, Mary finds herself being targeted by a mysterious stranger who attacks her in her house, and there's fingers pointed in a certain direction. I'm sure you can figure out where they're pointed. And as Halloween approaches, they prepare for a costume party at her new boyfriend's place, while some of her new friends are being slowly picked off one by one, especially a rather gruesome scene that happens at a shopping mall that her father is, his construction company is currently building. And then just everything hits the fan once Halloween gets there. She finds out the truth about her new boyfriend, and there is some really dark stuff that goes on in this one. This one almost, I feel like it should have trigger warnings of, well, it should have trigger warnings of assault, because there is assault that happens, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So this one gets kind of crazy. And I only gave this one 3.5 stars. It was a little more slashery, and I think the body count is higher in this one than it is in the previous book, but I just didn't enjoy it as much as I did The Scream Factory. Alright, and now number 3 is The Madhouse, which was published in 1998. I can't remember when the date was for this. I checked on Goodreads, but I forgot to write it down. But it takes place almost a year later. It's not quite. It's at the start of a new school year. It takes place in the month of August, which is kind of weird. So Halloween doesn't even happen. And the book only takes place, I think, over the course of maybe anywhere from a few days to maybe a couple weeks. So it takes place entirely in August. Halloween doesn't even happen. They do talk about the events and stuff. Like, it mentions that a year ago, the murders that happened on Halloween night at the party, and what had happened the previous year at the Scream Factory when the town hall had their Halloween party and the massacre that happened there. So yeah, it does have references, and I think in this one, I think this is the one that cleared up some of the lore, and it definitely shows that Halloween 2 does not happen in this continuity. It was just Halloween, Michael Myers disappears for so many years, comes back in the Scream Factory, and he's just been going from there. So this one follows a girl named Christine. She is volunteering in a documentary on Smith's Grove Mental Hospital, as opposed to it being Smith's Grove Sanitarium as it was in the films, for an up-and-coming student director named Eddie, who is our other protagonist in the book. And he's doing this documentary on the paranormal. The documentary isn't just on Smith's Grove, it's also in other locations, but they don't really talk much about that. They said that they have gotten some paranormal activity on film, and it was, amazing that they got it, but you never get to see it, and they don't really talk much about it. He talks about showing it to Christine, and there's a instant attraction between these two characters. There's also a subplot with a girl that's been hanging out with Eddie over the summer, and she's clearly into him. He's not into her, and she gets immediately jealous when Christine joins the project. So anyway, so the sanitarium is being reputed for being haunted by the ghost of Dr. Blackwell and his patients that died there, and all these terrible and disturbing experiments he did on his patients. And one of his patients that he treated and experimented on was Michael Myers. This book doesn't entirely wipe out Dr. Loomis like you might think, because it doesn't say there wasn't another doctor, and it doesn't say that Michael Myers was just Dr. Blackwell's patient, but it emphasizes that he experimented on him, and maybe he may have made him worse. But he was trying to figure out why Michael did what he did to his sister. So, this one was more slasher than the other ones. I think this one's my favorite in the entire trilogy, with the Scream Factory being my number 2. I feel like it may have even had the biggest body count for sure. The only weird thing was that it didn't take place at Halloween. But anyway, so what I rate this one, I rated it 4 stars. It was definitely, like I said, my favorite in the entire series. Like I said, the continuity is a little all over the place with this, and it makes some weird changes. The rubber gloves don't show back up, and they refer to Michael's mask as plastic. I would have thought they would have referred to his mask as rubber, but anyway. There was one more little thing about the continuity I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, so Michael Myers seems to be like this Superman in all the movies, where he just seems to get up. They never really do much of almost killing him in most of the movies, except for in the second one when he's, literally on fire. But in other instances, he just seems to get kind of a narrow escape. This one, they do a lot, in this series of books, they do a lot to him. Well, not a lot, but they do some stuff that you'd think that he should definitely be dead. He's treated as more of a zombie. He's almost more Jason Voorhees in this series than he is in the films. He's kind of depicted kind of zombie-like, and I do believe they make some references to his hands like they're rotting. So like he's got rotting flesh. So, but anyway, that is my review of the entire series. Now, I said I was going to get to, every time I said read, and I changed it to went through. I didn't physically read these books because these books are really hard to find. I did not know they existed until recently. I think it was back in April or so. Kelsey at Slime and Slashers actually mentioned the 80s Slasher Librarian. Here on YouTube, she listened to a Friday the 13th book. Well, I went onto his channel, I checked it out, and I didn't listen to that book, not yet. And I was flipping through stuff, and he had these readings for this Halloween series. So I checked it out, and that's these. And these books are rather rare. Like I said, I've never heard of them, and I looked it up, and yeah, these books go for a lot of money, and there's no way that I could get them. Unless I stumble upon them at like a flea market or something, maybe, and someone didn't know what they were worth. But these books are kind of rare, so I had to listen to these, and that's perfectly fine. I really enjoy the 80s Slasher Librarian's narration of these, and I have been listening to some other books that he's done audiobooks for that are rare slasher books, and they will be showing up in a future video. I can't tell you what they are yet. But do check out his channel. He literally reads a lot of these really hard to find books. So yeah, definitely check out the series if you're interested. You might like them, you might not. I thought they were pretty enjoyable for what they were. And I was kind of surprised of the violence and even a little bit of the sex stuff that was going on for YA books. But then again, I'm used to reading more YA books that are from like the 80s and like earlier 90s, not so much later 90s. But yeah, so I've definitely seen an evolution here in some of the books. Unless it's Christopher Pike, then it seems like his books are a little more adulty. But anyway, that's my review of the YA Halloween Trilogy. So yeah, until next time, stay safe, stay spooky, and happy Halloween. Bye-bye. What the?